Welcome to another episode of A Brother with Questions. I am your guy, B. Period. As you can see, I have a guest tonight. He goes by the name Braizy. I will let him introduce himself. Go ahead, Braizy.
What's good, y'all? Thank you for having me, B. Period. My name is Braizy Malik. I am the CEO and founder of Ghetto Creatives, and that's essentially a creative collective for young people of color. Really, not people of color, just young people in general.
Young people in general. Okay. So tell me about, because obviously y'all see the shirt. It say ghetto. So tell me about this brand that you created, man.
Okay, so first thing, the Ghetto Creative Collective is more like a hub. And my clothing brand, the Ghetto Brand, sits up under it. Actually,
Okay.
the first thing I ever did was do a podcast. So I have like 4 or 5 podcast episodes under the Ghetto Creators, my Ghetto Creators page. But fashion is something I always wanted to do. I'm sure you see me growing up. I'm sure you noticed that I've always been into like fashion, having sort of eclectic style. But I wanted to create something that meant something more than just fashion, more than just clothes. Something that was that could really like inspire people that look like me, inspire kids like me, and really just have a huge focus on youth and a focus on just being your authentic self.
Okay.
That's the easiest way to explain it.
So then is ghetto then an acronym for something?
So no, ghetto is actually not an acronym for something. So historically, ghetto is used to describe a place or a region or even a people and so I'm kind of shifting away from demographics and moving closer to psychographics. So um less adjective, more belief, more like this is a belief system I'm trying to shift into.
So ghetto is a mindset that you're
It's
trying
a
to create.
it's a mindset I'm trying to create.
Okay.
Yes,
So
a way of
then
life.
so then what would you describe the mindset of ghetto?
The way I would describe the mindset of ghetto is just as simple as no person, I mean, no color, no race, no demographic, no area, no location, just simply a person who realizes that they have something in them that they can give out to the world. And by doing that, they've done their job. And, and it will make the world a better place. Simple as that.
So the mindset is changing what we traditionally think of as ghetto
Hmm.
and then creating a mindset of I guess the action of being able to conquer the world and that being ghetto.
I don't know if I want to say conquer the world. Just more so just realizing that we all have a part to play in the world.
So recognizing your purpose.
Yes, more than anything, just recognizing that you have purpose. I feel like a lot of this generation is kind of leaning away from that purpose. We're kind of scared to put ourselves on the hook and be about something. It's
Okay.
kind of more so just like, oh, I'm just gonna do what everybody else is doing. But being ghetto was more so like, okay, I'm here for a reason, and I understand that there's something inside of me, and I have to search for that, and I have to find that, and I have to be that, and emanate that with love, and understand that from that, all the abundance in the world that I need comes from that. So that I feel like that will help cure, not cure, but I feel like that'll help with with this. I feel like it'll help with lack of there's like a strong selfishness that's going on right now, and I feel like we need more abundance mindset, especially in our communities of color. We need more of an abundance mindset to work
Mm-hmm.
together to, just I feel like if we work together as a whole, this society can, flow better. That makes sense. So that's more so what I'm trying to do.
Hmm.
More like a revolution, like a revolutionary art movement is how I look at it.
Okay. So let me ask you this, because as you're talking, I'm hearing people going, well, all of that sounds great,
Hmm.
but why attach it to ghetto when you know ghetto has such a negative connotation?
Mainly, I mean, the first reason is because I never liked the word. I always looked at it uniquely. Like when I was younger, I never liked, especially our people, I never liked that we were conditioned to feel that things naturally about us are ghetto because we were told by a certain people that it was. Like there was a standard pushed on, I would say an older generation to make them feel like that, like who they are or what they naturally were was wrong. For example, certain hairstyles, just natural, some of our natural creativity, just out of nothing, just naturally being who we were, without even being able to afford other things, even not even being able to be exposed to other things. We was just naturally creative, and I feel like we were taught that that's not right. We were taught to be a certain way, dress a certain way, act a certain way, present yourself in a certain light. Not saying that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. The brand is not an empowering movement to perpetuate certain stereotypes that are negative, but it still is about recognizing and living from an authentic place. If that makes sense.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, I so from what I'm gathering, you want to change that connotation because you've always disliked the negative connotation that it carries, and so you want to change perception to show people that there's a beauty and a creativeness and a love that comes out of this word that you try to, put this negative connotation on.
Yes, and I feel like obviously I want the older generation to hopefully over time start to be able to understand it. I know that I'll never be able to. Their minds will never completely change, but I still want them to be able to at least understand what's going on. But I understand that the generation, like my generation and below, is not like the word doesn't have the same. It's not as much. It's not as they're not attached to it like the older generation is. So it's more. I have more room to change the generation. I always heard of the phrase, and I like to stick to the phrase. It was this quote. I forgot who it's by. It's easier to build strong boys than heal wounded men. So I look at it like, the younger generation, if I can attack them, if I can inspire them, if I can get them to look at themselves and to look at things a different way and not let antiquated phrases like the N-word or ghetto, all these different things have so much weight that holds you down. If I can get them to see beauty or to see beauty in themselves and to not look at each other, and this is from to not look at each other from a how can I phrase this word? Not look at each other and say, "Oh, you're this, you're that," but more so like, "Oh, we can come together regardless of how we look." You get what I'm saying? That's more so what I'm trying to do. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like they have more of a fresh slate when it comes to a lot of things. Like they hear things. That most of that stuff is taught. It's not as we're not as attached to these words and these marginalizing boxing words that the older generation was, because it was used to suppress and to make you feel away.
Right. So when you say older generation, I feel like you're talking about me. But
pretty much, I mean, essentially, like, because even my generation, like, I'm like at the end of the millennials. Like, I barely made it. I'm 95, so I barely scratched the surface. So like, even like some people my age and a little bit older, it's either what the reaction I get is either they love it because they feel like they relate to what they think it means on the surface level, or they don't really. It's like it's like the same thing. They're not mad, but it's like, I don't know how I feel about that. And obviously it's a marketing thing as well, because you're gonna read it regardless. Like there's no person when I'll walk around sometimes and I forget I have it on, and I'm like, well, I'm staring at it. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying? So it's like that was a part of it too. It was obviously meant to draw in and start a conversation.
It catches you.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. That's interesting. I even noticed in your hat you say ghetto created the world. And so I'm gathering from that concept, you're talking about the influence. Again, you're not necessarily looking at it from a negative connotation, but you're looking at it from people who come from a place that some people have deemed negative. Mm-hmm. Those same people are now influencing the world in a positive way.
Yes.
Is that how you would take that?
Yes, I feel like whether you're from that or not, if you are, in our culture, then you're influenced by it. You're influenced by the people of the ghetto. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, we're only a few. Even if you grew up in suburbia, you're still a degree, and if you're a person of color, you're probably a degree or two away, or you have a good part of your family that has an influence of that. So I feel like it's influenced the world all over. Even if we want to take it way back to the Jews, like at the end of the day, to see what they've done from the ghetto and how they, orchestrated and influenced the world. You could, like I said, I look at it from so many different areas and so many different scales, and that's why I feel like it's a global it's a global thing
Mm.
because it's like, yeah, I'm a black man, so obviously everything I do is going to come from that, and it's gonna, I want to inspire that. But at the end of the day, I feel like it's more of a global thing because it's ghettos everywhere, one, and that the culture that comes from, you know, um, suppressed people, or the things that come from suppressed people or suppressed situations is usually pretty raw and pretty beautiful. I mean, so.
People do love authenticity. And I agree, from that perspective, a lot of, you look at current people who, so especially entertainment,
Yes.
the people who influence sports, a lot of those people do come from backgrounds that would be probably described as ghetto.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they're now the tastemakers that are deciding what is popular. They're the ones deciding what music is popular, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hip hop, arguably from a bunch of people who come from the ghetto.
Mm-hmm.
And then even when you look at commercials, television, a lot of that influence has that hip hop influence on it as well. So again, ghetto inspired. So I can see that. I could definitely see that. So let me ask you, so what got you here? What got you on this particular movement? What kind of set you down your path to be like, you know what, this is what I want to do?
I mean, obviously, I gotta give it the glory and honor to God because that's really who shifted my mindset. Like I've always wanted to do fashion. Like I made my first shirt in 10th grade. It's something I've always done. I always seen myself like I've always been interested in fashion. I've always had my own particular style. I've always kind of been obsessed with it, you know. And I've always looked at myself as like not a taste maker or not like just to have like I had a unique style. I used to like to dress people, but honestly, getting arrested was probably for me what kind of put me on the path of like more of a like social political brand take on fashion.
Okay.
I realized I'm not even from the ghetto, but I went to school in the ghetto, and I feel like that's what makes my perspective unique because I can pull from like all of my friends grew up poor, super poor, and my closest home was. So I feel like I can pull from those perspectives, but I'm thankful for the perspective that I grew up around. Even though my parents come from more impoverished backgrounds, I feel like I've been exposed to a lot. So I feel like with that, and also like I said, me getting in trouble, I have a unique perspective to see that okay, I've probably been put here for a reason. So let me use my passions and let me use my passions to inspire others in the way that and actually and not only inspire but just kind of like share my perspective with the world and like share my worldview of things. So I think instead of just doing fashion just to be cool, I think getting arrested and spending that time with myself and spending that time with God kind of just let me like, okay, fashion is something you're meant to do because I got away from it, but you're gonna do it in a way that it just has more depth. You get what I'm saying? Because I see it, just being observant, I see the lack of uh purpose just in the youth and the music we watch and in the fact and everything. It's just like doing things to just do them,
Mm-hmm.
opposed to like really doing meaningful work. Like that's like I always like to reference Seth Godin, putting yourself on the hook and to do meaningful work. If that makes sense.
Mm.
So that's kind of like what
So let me ask you this. I agree. I see that a lot of youth don't have as much purpose as I would say I did when I was their age. What is it that you think is driving youth to have that lack of purpose these days? Or is there are they missing something? Is it that something that hasn't been given to them, something they haven't seen? What do you think is driving that?
I think it's comfortability. I think it's like, for example, so I feel like the things that I would like I said, I'm gonna go back to my culture because that's just what I am. Uh, the things that kind of driven the older culture to kind of was the oppression. To be real, and I feel like the oppression now is as strong, but we're so much more distracted.
Mm.
So it's like back then, I feel like you could see the impression. Like every day you walk out your house, there was something like there was an overriding like you're not good enough. You're this. You know what I'm saying? Like we got to really stick together. We got to be about something for our people. I feel like now with the distractions and the fact that I see like social media shows the commonalities in humans, but it doesn't. But it definitely distracts and it masks the what's really going on. Like the fact that they're like if you look at even in our government and in Florida, like if we're not careful, like we're slowly being enslaved in other ways. You get what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And not even just like I said, not even just really the black community, just people of color in general. Even like just people of color in general, because like I said, we're so focused on the wrong things. And again, we don't if we don't have that infrastructure teaching us that this is what's really going on, this is what you need to be focused on, that distraction can take you completely away from that and can separate us because now everybody can be in their own world and care
Okay.
about their own selves. You get what I'm saying? Versus you guys, community was more important. You get what I'm saying? You could walk outside, you see a brother going through the same thing, you want to help. Nowadays, it's like, my business. I'm actually gonna
Record.
record because now we find amusement in misery, which is so weird to me.
Hmm.
But yeah,
So let me ask you. You said that you guys are going through oppression. When you say oppression, what do you define as or describe as the oppression you see today?
the oppression I see today is at the end of the day, I feel like I hate to talk like this, but this just is what it is. The powers that be are the powers that be, and it hasn't changed. But the awareness of that is like gone.
Hmm. So I'm a devil's advocate here. When you say powers that be, what are you referring to?
I don't like to put any one particular group in that. It's just I don't think that exactly what I'm going to say. I don't believe that uh, the individuals who control, let's say, media, propaganda, and the world's wealth and influence from a financial standpoint hasn't changed. I don't think. I think there's more. I believe that there is more wealth being made
Mm-hmm.
and spread, but I don't think there is a wealth of knowledge being spread. I think that's still like a thing, and that's important.
Okay. So I'm just walking through your thought process
Yes,
with you.
I'm on.
So when you say oppression, you're not necessarily talking about an act or a purposeful, for lack of a better word, handovers of someone. You're talking about the lack of access to the knowledge one needs in order to um, improve themselves.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay, the access. I think the access is actually in more abundance, but I think that the fact is there's just so much more. Like there's so much access to information. There's so much access to things that it almost causes a paralysis, and we choose to focus on what's easier. So it's like the oppression is like not even. I don't even think depression is worse. I think it's just it was is the word overt when it's like obvious, or is the word overt when it's not obvious?
Overt?
Yes.
No, overt would
No,
not
no.
necessarily reference obvious.
Yes. Okay. So I think it's more. I think it's less overt now than it was. So I
Okay.
think it's extremely. I think it's extremely in your face, but it's like again the access to information and knowledge and all these different things disguises it and makes you think that we can do X, Y, and Z. But I feel like there's just not a concentrated effort on it. So it's easy to get things underway. Like the fact that most people don't even know what's going on in our state because we care about X, Y, and Z, but we're being oppressed. Like there's different things being put into place to uh, keep certain people and certain entities in control. Still, it's just the concept of like you put something in a book, most people are not gonna read it. The books are available, but we're not reading it.
Yeah, we definitely don't.
It's not cool. It's not you get what I'm saying? So that's essentially what I'm trying to say. I feel like it's just changed a little bit. I feel like it's more relaxed. Like they're just doing what they want to do. Like the fact that I feel like the fact that there's not an emphasis on knowing what's going on, world news, knowing the things that will position you in to get better, is like more access to that information, and it's like we care about it less. Like I feel like y'all wanted it more, but didn't have access to it. Now the access is there, and we can care less
that it's there.
And I feel like that was it's almost like a self oppression in a way. It's like even when you think about Instagram and social media, like we give them access and control to all of our information, all of the things all of the things they need to influence us, all the things they need to control our minds. You know what I'm saying? To put us in a pattern where we just constantly do it to ourselves. So it's like you don't have to do as much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. One of the things that I talk about is, number one, I don't like to use the word oppression, especially when it comes to, let's say, today. Because number one, access to information is prevalent, right? Anything you want to know, you pick up this computer and you can find it out. And then you could also watch 15 videos. When you don't understand the word, there's another 1,500 videos that will break down the word that you didn't understand, and then give you multiple options on how you can take advantage of this particular, whatever it is that you want to know. But I do agree that the younger generation is extremely distracted because they certainly care about what's going on Instagram, what's going on TikTok, what's going on YouTube, and watching other people live life.
Life is so weird.
As opposed to living their own life.
Exactly. And that's really what I want to bring to light. I really want to get this generation, especially that's coming up, to just understand the importance of what's going on. Because I feel like there's an urgency we need to have in the generation that we don't have. And this is part of the reason why I named what I named, because it's so bold in your face. Like it's like a wake up. Like everybody needs to wake up. Like y'all are tripping. Because I catch myself doing it sometimes, and I have to kind of remind myself, like, no. You can really get distracted because I'm gonna say they've taken our attention spans and brought them down to this, like nothing, which is why a person won't do further research. Why a person won't watch those 15 extra videos, even though the information is there, because they want quick. You know what I'm saying? Like, in the gossip, all these things are easy. It's quick. It's easy. That's challenging, and I feel like we just got away from that. We got away from wanting more out of ourselves, out of our lives, out of each other. Like so.
Okay. All right. You said something twice. And me being me, I got to come back to
it.
So you talked about, obviously we live in Florida. And you talked twice. Twice you said in Florida they are quietly trying to enslave us. And so I got to find out. I got to find out what do you see them doing that you feel like is enslaving? Quietly enslaving us.
The emphasis on the black vote, on the not even the black vote, just the vote of color. I feel like this is something that happened honestly around the time that Trump was running for office. But I'll jump back to now. I feel like the thing. Let's go to the most recent with the DeSantis and the whole. Although there are a lot of discrepancies about that situation, about why he didn't approve of the curriculum or whatever, for whatever reason. I'm not going to get into that stuff in detail. But I think that's something important, because at the end of the day, let's be real, our history isn't really taught to us like that. Like I went to all black high school and didn't learn about African American history for real until I went to FAMU. Like that's just
you have to take the course.
You had to take that course.
Yeah, you get
what I'm saying? You had to take that course. So, and even then, it's like you still had to go search for more knowledge about it, because that was just a spark. because you can only learn so much in a semester unless you majored in that. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like that little bit alone, just the lack of history, or the deliberate miseducation of our history, is one thing that's just so important to me. And I feel like, and like I said, not even just for Black kids. I think it's just important for kids in general, because at the end of the day, like, African Americans, or just Africans in general, or slaves in general, just people of color in general coming into the States, has again impacted the culture in such a way to not know that history only creates future individuals who don't know history and are not going to act as they, not going to respect and act as they should, and bring about a society as we should. I feel like if it's taught, and if it's taught the right way in all schools, Black, white, Spanish, whatever, I feel like there will be a more of appreciation for people, more of appreciation for um, people of color. I feel like there should be more of an appreciation for who built this country, essentially. You know, and who built, it built the culture. Because if you look at it, like when I talk about culture, I don't know if you know exactly what I mean when I say culture.
Explain to.
So culture to me, at this point in this time, is hip hop culture. I don't think much really escapes hip hop culture in this time, this day and time.
Okay.
Because I feel like you said, I feel like it's permeated everything. Like, you see it in everything. You see it in everything. Like, I don't know much that you don't see hip hop culture in. I don't even think hip hop culture even has race anymore. To me, I don't think it has a race anymore.
Okay.
So I think just the whole raw, authentic, just creativity, or just the raw authentic creativity is just what hip hop culture is. Just what culture is. So now when like I said, when I think about culture, um, that's what drives everything. When you think about the way brands market now, the way um like the fact that a streamer, a Twitch streamer, can cause chaos in the streets of New York and get arrested just off of him giving out free stuff. Like the culture doesn't.
You explained culture, and then you were trying to define how the culture, hip hop culture, is influencing the world today. I think is what you were trying to do.
Yes, and I was, because I was talking about the kids. The kids of today, like, when I say the kids of today, I mean like the kids in high school on now. They don't have the upbringing of, so they see the racial injustice, but I don't think it doesn't really like affect them like it affected us. They just see what's going on, and they're heavily influenced by the culture because of the technology, and you know what goes on TikTok and Instagram and all that. So I don't believe they're as tied to the negative aspects of it. And when I say they, I mean like the non-black, the non-people of color. So I feel like, I think this is where I was going with the education piece. I feel like we're at a place where culture can actually impact our society better, but we don't have the leaders we need to actually shift us that way.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Like that.
So
Like,
you said a lot. I got a lot
yeah,
to come back to.
yeah.
So I'm going to go back first. I'm going to talk briefly about. So you mentioned the African American history course. So I know you hadn't seen the podcast, but I've done a couple. I've talked about that several times.
I'm definitely gonna go back.
And so, and I'll just tell you, I think it was trash, and I was actually in favor. Once I read the curriculum, I was actually in favor of the fact that he decided it wasn't for the state. So, but
why?
Well, did you read the course?
I'd seen some of the classes. I didn't dive deep into, like.
So, we're talking about the AP African American History course, right?
Yes.
So
I seen what was that? I remember something about. Oh, it's not coming to me right now because I literally watched something on it and I read a little bit on it. I can't come. It's not coming to me.
So for me, when I was looking at the course, to me they were doing. It was like they were tying into African American history the alphabet community,
yes,
and their history. And hold on.
Okay.
And so what was frustrating to me is if I'm going to learn about African American history, it was interesting to me that they were now interjecting in the based on the alphabet community these let's say the personal lives of some of our icons in Black history, right? And now telling me stories about how they were a part of the alphabet community. Um, and like when I look at that, I'm going, my question was, well, how does that teach me African American history to, and maybe they were, maybe they weren't, but I don't see how knowing that and then exploring that changes what they had to say that made them like a Langston Hughes. I don't think knowing that maybe he was a gay man, how does that change what his writings were? How does that change how I feel about his writings? But then, as you went down, they were doing a big job in just tying that into every aspect, going all the way back to Harriet Tubman. They were tying how that was in every aspect of our history, as if we weren't acknowledging it before, but now moving forward, we have to acknowledge that it's almost like we're tied together. And this new word that I still refuse. Well, I don't say I refuse to understand. I just don't understand it. Intersectionality. That's the new word, about how everything is tying together. And then when you got to the end of the course, it was pretty much not African American history anymore. It was talking about like some of these current movements, such as Black Lives Matter, which again, another problematic thing in my opinion. And so I'm looking at the overall course and I'm going, I get the vision why you had to create one and then tie these two things that traditionally have not been tied together when it came to our history. But now you're telling me it's important to tie them together. Otherwise, you're no longer telling the proper history. And I just refuse to accept that that is the case.
So I agree with you for the most part on that. But what I will say from a creative standpoint, when we think of the Langston Hughes, the James Baldwins of the world, the Michael Basquiat's of the world, people who in the creative space, because that's if we let's be being honest with you, that's when we talk about history, and usually when we recognize historically is in a creative field.
Mm-hmm.
Those individuals were usually a part of that community. I think because those individuals usually were a lot. I'm going to phrase this the right way because I agree with most of what you're saying. I'm not going to lie to you. I agree with you. But I do understand because that was the part of the course that I was kind of like, I understood where they were coming from like a James Baldwin perspective example. So like him being.
I've seen James Baldwin talk.
Him being.
Seems like a gay man to me. Again, go ahead.
People were saying, and it kind of made sense to me, that was a very big aspect of who he was, about how he went about things, because you got to realize like that was just an ostracized thing that was tabloid ostracized.
I recognize
and in
that
space,
I get that.
And in that creative space, all that goes away. And when you're in that space among those people, a lot of that goes away. So, but when you come back to being a Black person, it's like that's when you're faced with it from a very not insecure, but you're faced with it from in a place. For example, okay, so you're in the 80s, you're a Black gay creative, right? You're amazing at what you do, amazing at what you do, but you're not what, again, going back to the word, to me, ghetto, not the word ghetto, but like the box that we're putting to and how we should be and who we should be. You're not necessarily accepted over here in the stereotypical Black space, but you're accepted over here in that group because that group accepts you for who you are.
Gotcha.
So when you're in that group and you're fostering your creativity, you're free. But when you come back here, you're not necessarily accepted. But that's very much of who you are. So you're like, you have to deal with, when you go out in the world, you have to deal with being a Black man. But then in your everyday walk with people, you have to deal with being that. But you also have to deal with, like, again, being a Black man. So it's kind of like they felt like a lot of a lot of that's an important aspect to teach because when you think about a good amount of the people we celebrate, they delved in that lifestyle due to I personally feel because I like the I mean I always bring it back to the spiritual thing. Yeah, I feel like it's just an acceptance thing. I think so. It's like I want to be accepted. These people accept me. I'm open to this now. I'm influenced by this now. I'm that, but I don't want to get too into that conversation. So I think so. I understood why it was put there, but I don't agree with putting it in there. If that makes sense, I don't agree with making the course about that, but I understand why the person who was probably doing it and why a large amount of that community feels that way. Because at the end of the day, those are the people in our community who are usually more expressive in a certain way and usually more recognized. Now, then you have the individuals like our Martin Luther Kings or Malcolm X's who are expressive as well in their own way, but they have to fit a certain mold to be accepted in both sides, on both places. And even then, a lot of times we don't even accept them. So it's a loaded answer,
Mm-hmm.
but I understand why. So I was looking at it from a standpoint like at least we get a black course, but I
Well,
do understand why it can be problematic for it to be taught in that way. Because I seen that and that was my like, it's a little different. But I like, you know what I'm saying? Like even being in a fashion space, that's just what even in creative spaces, it's just like we're so afraid to like I feel like it's getting better now because people just want to be creators. But just historically we've been so afraid to like be ourselves. And the only people who really were able or willing to just being ourselves being themselves were the people who were in that community because they were already ostracized anyway. So like this community of individuals um accepts me. Like when I think about like again the greatest contemporary artist of our time, John Michael Basquiat, like weirdo to us. You would think he was a weirdo, but you know, Andy Warhol accepted him. Andy Warhol was a gay man, one of the greatest contemporary artists of that time. You get what I'm saying?
mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? But nobody else really like. He didn't become famous until he died. He
Right.
overdosed. So you get what I'm saying? So it's like I agree with you 100%. I really do agree with you. But I do understand that aspect because being in the creative space I'm around
That.
those individuals and I see straight men or you know people who don't put themselves in that. But I see the insecurity of being yourself. I've always been myself. You get what I'm saying? And I had to fight a lot of that even in my own family, even in our own upbringing, because it's just in our culture to like ostracize anything that's not in the norm.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So it's like like I said, I think I've just been blessed with a good perspective and an open heart to just be more accepting of everybody and to be
Well, see,
confident in who I am.
well,
So
see,
it's
for
like,
me, it's not about not being accepting. It's let's look at it this way, okay? Um, I think if we're going to, delve, right,
mhm.
we could probably find individuals in American history, in European history, who perhaps had influence, who perhaps also secretly, in some instances, not so secretly in others, may be a part of that community as well. But I've never read that in the history books. I've never seen anyone try
Focus
and
on it.
go back and tell me, well, da 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 and da 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 and da 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 da. But when we had this course that we were launching, it wasn't just a Florida thing. They were launching this thing across the country. Um, and now that we're launching this new AP course, influenced all by the whole George Floyd, black people, this, whatever. We now had to make sure we incorporated these
Incorporate it, yeah.
things. And that's what I had a problem with is this idea that now that we're here with us, now we got to make sure we acknowledge all of this because we need you to know that, we've been here all the time. Because that's the real point.
That is the real point.
That is the real point.
There's
a point that they're trying to make.
Yeah,
exactly.
So and so
and so I felt for me, I'm like, no, we don't. I don't see the necessity of that. And for that reason,
all power to them.
I said, I can't get with this course.
Yeah,
Because this course is trying to, he called it an agenda. He refers to everything as the woke agenda.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily subscribe to the way he describes it anyway. I do think there's a message, but I don't necessarily agree with his description of it. And so for that reason, I had a problem with that. And so, and because I felt like we could do the course, because they do teach African American history in schools. Do you go to a big enough school that has access to more programs in terms of, more teachers, more opportunities for teachers and social studies classes and things and electives? There is an elective called African American History that you can take in high school. And this, because anyway, this is the AP course that they were doing. And if you know anything about AP courses, the majority of AP courses don't have black kids in them. And so, there's really one for black kids anyway, because most black kids aren't taking AP courses. And so, for those reasons, I was like, I ain't got no problem with this one.
Yeah, I can definitely understand you when you bring that point up, and it's like, okay, we don't need to teach people that these two groups are synonymous with each other.
Yes, yeah,
undeniably, yeah. So I definitely agree with you on that one.
That's the word. And when I looked at what they were doing, I was like, oh, this is trying to tell me something. There's a message in it.
And see, that's the wisdom of,
because of the consistency.
That's the wisdom of your generation. See, when I was looking at it, I wasn't looking at it from that perspective, but now that you put it that way, I definitely can see it. I definitely can see it. See, because when I see, like, I'm just looking at it from, okay, the people that I've studied, the artists I've studied, okay, they are aware for the most part. You get what I'm saying? But again, that goes back to another thing, and goes back to your question of what I really meant to say about, like, how did I get where I'm at? I feel like there's just not enough people who want to be leaders. Like, we don't have Malcolm X's and Martin Luther King's really in this generation, for real. Nobody cares to put themselves on the hook like that. Nobody really cares about the greater good or whatever. You get what I'm saying? Of people, not, you know what I'm saying? So, like, I think that time of isolation, of being, on supervision and being in, house arrest or whatever, kind of made that crystal clear for me. Like, okay, you're gonna do it in your own way, but this generation, these people, these kids need strong leaders of color. Point blank, period.
I think, I don't know that I wouldn't necessarily say we don't have leaders. I think the problem is in our community, you have to say certain things in order to be qualified as a leader. So here's an example. If you're not talking about systemic racism, if you're not talking about social justice reform, and all you're doing is talking about black empowerment and black financial wealth and things of that nature, if that's your core message, nobody's listening to you.
Nobody.
Because we live in a society where everybody wants to tell us that if we just fix social justice reform, if we fix police brutality, if we fix if we somehow attack systemic racism, then if we're not doing those kinds of things, we're not going to be able to solve the problems that we have in Black America.
And I think that's a problem of the issue of the past, to be honest with you.
And I would agree, because in my opinion, I think the problems in Black America start with family, and the lack of families that we have today. And I think while those things are issues, I think if we had better family core groups and more consistent family core groups,
what do you mean?
So mothers, fathers, kids, that traditional model of family, the nuclear family as they call it, right? If we had more of those in the communities, with mothers and fathers who were focused on ensuring their kids were going to be better than them, I think that would do more for the community than systemic racism ever did, police brutality ever did, social justice ever did. Because when you're raising a group of children who aren't in the justice system because they're in school, who are getting jobs where, what I call it, racism proof. And all I mean by that is, if I'm going to become an engineer, the job that I get as an engineer, number one, there's plenty of them. Number two, when I get that job, I'm going to probably be making high fives to six figures. So right there, I'm already out of a particular bracket, all the way out of a particular area that is going to put me into quote unquote these categories where, people find themselves in trouble all the time, we'll say. If we're raising a generation that's moving like that, sure, it's going to take us 20, 30 years, right? Because these kids have to grow up, they got to go to college, and then they got to get a job. That takes about 20 to 25 years to do so. But if we're doing that, we're going to see a generation 50 years from now that has none of the problems that we're talking about today. And so, again, that problem goes back to one of those things we initially talked about, is the lack of purpose that youth have. And I think part of that is influenced by the fact that families aren't intact, and then number two, those, and then the families that do exist. What I see in my experience, I deal with a lot of second or first generation American students. Parents come from whatever country they came from, and so some of those families, number one, don't understand the importance of education because they didn't necessarily come here with it. And while they understand it can help their kids because they weren't raised here, they don't necessarily know how it works. And so because they don't know how it works, they don't know how to necessarily put or steer their kids into the right direction so that their kids can see it better. And then for us that have been born here, raised here, a lot of us don't have the family structure that supports the idea of, whether it's schooling or whether it's, whatever it is you want to do, to better yourself. They don't have the support system in place that gets them to the place that they need to be, which goes back to family.
I got two things. So I'm gonna speak to that point, and I'm gonna speak to the other point. You spend a lot of game, because when I think about my family structure, and even me falling into the judicial system, even my whole mindset about it, and how I was able to bounce back from it, and how I looked at what was going on with me, is because, and what I gained from it was because of my upbringing. Like I immediately upon being arrested, it's like, yeah, you tripping, and you got to get it all the way together. Versus individuals around me that I know, they stuck in the. You get what I'm saying? Like they can't stop smoking, they can't stop doing X, Y, and Z. I'm like, all right, let me completely like 360 because I was raised better than this. You get, and then even that from that, let me use this to help others. Even it's not, prevent this, and also, what I'm saying, like it was so much that came from it. I'm like, dang, that's really because of like I was raised better, I was raised right. Like immediately, like there was an immediate like snap back to reality of like who you are, what you got going on, and where you need to be going. Versus the friends who fall into that system and can't seem to get out, can't seem to see hope, can't seem to, you get what I'm saying? Like me, I immediately like, okay, this was God getting my attention. Like you need to get back to the main thing, like immediately. You get what I'm saying? So that is 100% fact, like 100% fact. And then to speak to the point about the people coming from other countries or having parents, that's interesting to me because I agree with you, but I also find it interesting because I have a lot of Haitian friends, a lot of Haitian friends, a lot of Jamaican friends, and a few African friends, and I feel like they are more serious about America's opportunities than us, though. Their parents shoved down their throats.
It depends on the culture.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the culture because I feel like we're more lazy.
So here's what I would say, and I'm just taking a guess. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong. So I find that African people who come to America are very serious about the opportunities that are here, and recognizing that they're here because there's better opportunities. And so people from Africa usually are very serious about their mindset. Jamaicans, generally speaking, have a hustle about them. And so even they see the opportunity from the hustle perspective, right? It doesn't necessarily always translate into school, but it translates into I can do this and I can do that. My hands can be and so with Haitians, it does that. But what I find is, especially of the children, it's generational. So I have a friend who's a little bit younger than me, but he's still over that 40 threshold. And so he definitely came here with the mindset, because he's got a couple brothers, but they're all first generation. Parents were born in Haiti, but they have that mindset of being able to get, what they need to do to get better. But when I look at the 17-year-olds that I talk to, who are also Haitian, who are first generation, they're just, a lot of them are still roaming.
Yeah.
A lot of them are still roaming. And so I don't know what's happened from the generation that has the 70-year-old now versus the generation that has a 40-year-old.
Because I think the parents are younger. Like I said, I have a lot of Haitian friends, and a lot of them. Some of them were born in Haiti. Some of them family members. I'm speaking from because if you speak from because obviously Biden allowing them to come into the country because of what's going on over there, and I'm noticing like the younger parents or the like you said the younger kids, like their parents don't even have the same like hustle and bustle that like the older generation of those do.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying? So like I could speak on one situation in particular. Like her mom, she was born in Haiti, but she came over here like 4 or 5. Her mom came over here, got straight to work, straight to it, and was able to bring, now is able to bring some of her family members, and they have kids. And I'm looking at their hustle is not the same. They don't recognize what's going on necessarily. Like they're not understanding the like they got to get on there. They were way behind. So to that point, I think, like you said, I think it's just the younger generation in general, just not like aware of what's going on. Like social media really got social media and I thought that was just an American thing, but the whole caring more about outer appearance or caring more about perception versus reality, I think that just got like
I think
it got everybody global. Like on like.
I think it's global.
I didn't realize how global it was until really seeing that, because I'm like, you really don't realize like that you're an American now, and they're like, you behind. You need to learn English. You get what I'm saying? But you worried about making sure your kid is in X, Y, and Z, and I don't know what's going on. I blame it all on social media. I blame it all on social media. We care too much about what we show versus what's going on for real, like versus living a real life.
We definitely are more focused on what's happening on social media than actually doing stuff in the real world.
That's so crazy to me.
That's definitely true.
That's so insane to me. I really can't. I'm a young man and I still can't really, like, I fall into it at times, but I'm so reminded. And again, I think that goes back to my father being like, you're not about to look like nothing. You're going to be about something. Like he fought, like, and it's crazy because he fought me on the fashion thing my whole life. He fought me on it so much. And I never understood why he fought me on it so much. But he was always like, our culture is too worried about what we look like versus what we actually are.
Yes, we are.
You get what I'm saying? Yeah. And I think that's helped me kind of like navigate a lot of what I went through in life to understand it's like, okay, even with my brand, even in the foundations of my brand, like, yeah, it's about the cool, like I feel like the fashion side, like the I feel like that comes easy. Like there's tiers to my brand. So, and I'll get into that if you don't mind. Sure. Get into the tiers of how I look at my brand. So I look at my brand from 3 levels, and that's surface, that's penetration, and that's depth. So the surface level is what you see. You see the ghetto, you see the fashion, you see like the whatever comes with all the hip hop, all the fun stuff. But then you have the penetration, which is a community work, which I really like want to hone in on. Like, so when I think about everything I do, I'm trying to figure out, okay, so like, for example, let's say I were to collaborate with an artist. In order to do a collaboration, I'm thinking in my head, okay, how can the us collaborating is the surface. That's cool. That's whatever. We make me some clothes, whatever. Let's figure out how we can do something to inspire at least one kid. For if that's bring that kid to you to the studio for the day. If that's we go shopping, like some kind of that. If that's we give some kind of you give some kind of game, some kind of inspiration to. That's the print. Like that's what this is about. It's about and in the depth podcasting, talking, really getting you to dive into my mindset, which is going to be the foundation of what this is to let you understand this is about transforming the mind more than anything. And that's when I want to get into the art because I definitely want to make art. I definitely want to make film because that's another problem. I feel like something we don't really talk about the fact that most of the things we consume are not even from our perspective. So we just kind of like and film, whether you say it or not, informs culture. It really it just does. It influences culture.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at it from those three tiers. The depth being the film, the art, the conversation, the podcast, us me talking, me really like trying to expose your mind to different things and expand it. Then going to the penetration, which is the community work, the mentorship. Like what I'm saying, find a way to inspire the kids, heavy, like giving back, really really heavy. And then the surface level, which is just it's just naturally
what you see.
It's what you see is easy. It's yeah. I feel like I'm a pretty fresh dude. I know fashion. It comes easy to me. That doesn't matter to me. My brain's gonna be surface levelly cool regardless. But let's focus on the penetration and the depth to really bring about change. And I feel like that's not what there's not a heavy focus on that, and I want to heavily focus on that.
So when you say there's not a heavy focus on, you're talking about changing the mentality of the young people, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, the mentality of the culture of the young people, just in general. Yeah, I don't feel like there's a focus on that with anything.
Well, let me ask you this to kind of go back. So we've been talking a lot about culture, and you define what that you think the world today is based on hip hop culture. What do you say to people who argue that hip hop culture is trash? Right?
I don't disagree with them because I don't think okay. It depends on who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to somebody my age, and I'm not you just talking. If I'm talking to an older. If I'm talking to you, an older person, seeing the changes, I won't disagree with you because I don't think it's trash. I think it's just different. It's trash. When we really look at it, it's ultimately it's trash because of what we choose to focus on. But I still think there are people being true to it. I just think, like you said, we don't care about. Like again, it goes back to the book. We don't care about the meat. We just care about the surface. We care about the visual, right. Being cool.
Right. Because when you think about hip hop, you think about who the major artists are, who the songs that they choose to play on the radio are. And most of that, in terms of the culture, most of that is not adding to the culture.
It's not at all. It's actually
it's taking away from it, right?
In a crazy way.
And then it's even bringing a negative connotation on what you would assume the culture to be. But I also remember you talking about, and I think for you, I'm assuming when you say this word, you talked about the creativity. What else did you mention? The creativity, the rawness of it. And so I think that's what you focus on when you say culture, right?
Yeah, that's what I focus on 100% because at the end of the day, that's what moves society, in my personal opinion. I feel like culture permeates everything. Like whether you're a part of it or not, somehow, some way you're influenced by it. Right. You get what I'm saying? For example, even speaking on streetwear, the genre that I'm not in, because I look at streetwear as more of an, again, shout out to Virgil Abloh, the late Virgil Abloh. He was able to go from screen print t-shirts to being the menswear designer at Louis Vuitton. Huge dude, the biggest luxury fashion house ever. I look at streetwear as like art form. From its rawest form, it's very, very influential. It starts with the kids on the street, the young kids doing their thing, usually again the drug dealers or whatever. For example, how like if you're familiar, like really when you think about the fashion trends, they started the rappers when hip hop started. The rappers wanted to be like the drug dealers. Everybody else wanted to be like the rappers, and so on. So and it just spews on. Now like even brands like Louis Vuitton and all these things, and how they make ready to wear garments got influence from the streets.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? And then every day, the highest of highs, people are elite are wearing that. You get what I'm saying? So when it comes to that raw creativity, I just feel like that when you really tap into that, it's undeniable. It's undeniable. But I feel like again, with the microwave generation, you don't really have to tap into that. You really just gotta kind of do what's hot. You know what I'm saying? And that's in every form. That's from music to film to politics. I feel like in every form, like it's like you just do. People, a lot of people are doing what people are doing. What what people are accepting because it's about the fastest. It's about getting to the fastest. It's about getting to the end goal fast as possible versus really like taking your time and really like again penetrating and really transforming the people that interact with what you do versus just like, oh, they heard what I said. They might agree with it or not, but I'm doing this because it's acceptable, or I'm doing this because it's trendy. I'm doing this because I know they'll like this. I think even the raw creativity, it's not always like I understand my brand is like it's very controversial, and I like that because it's supposed to start a conversation. You get what I'm saying? I love the fact that usually when I talk to your generation, they don't get it. They don't like it. But it's like I'm open enough to be like, okay, let's have a conversation about it. Because I think you have a lot of wisdom, and I think there's a big separation between our generations, and I think that gap needs to be closed.
That is the conversation. But okay, all right, yeah, I'm getting the idea of ghetto. Uh, so getting back, so you want to get more into the second level of the Ghetto
Mhm.
Creative Collective, I think it's called, right?
Ghetto Creatives is the overall
Ghetto
umbrella.
Creative.
It's
All
the
right, so in the Ghetto Creative Brand, so you want to get into more into the community. So what kind of things are you wanting to implement within the community?
my again. I kind of like have to. And this is something that kind of like it's like an internal battle. I kind of have to play with the psychology of how people are when it comes to fashion and culture, as well as playing with the fact like in balancing the fact of actually wanting to do a lot of community things and be for the people.
Mm-hmm.
So I my pricing. So my dead mentor Virgil Abloh always talks about like his brand. His off white was pretty expensive. He would always say like my brand is not for kids who can't afford it. It's targeted to the people who can afford it, but it's to inspire the kids who can't afford it to go do their own thing.
Mm.
You get what I'm saying? So it's like for me, I understand that we don't respect things unless they're held into a light that are almost unattainable. But at the end of the day, I want to clothe everybody. I want to clothe the hood. That's the one thing I always say. Like I want to find a way to clothe the hood. So one initiative I'm working on, and this is actually the first time I'm saying this out loud, is a clothing drive that I want to do where I collect clothes, collect a whole bunch of clothing, and then just hopefully partner with some of the high school athletes in the community to just help me literally just throw the design tag on all the clothes we get and just give it out. And also design. I want to design a shirt as well that has a message. It's not going to really be a ghetto shirt for real. It's going to sit in the back in small words, but it's going to have more of a message and things like that. Mentoring kids, talking to kids. One thing that Virgil did that I did not really care for, but I kind of understood why he had to do what he had to do because he was more of a door opener.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? He would do talks at like Harvard and all these elite schools. I want to do a lot. I want a fam. So I want to bring influential people to the people who don't who overlooked. I want to be the influencer who is that bridge to the kids, to the communities, you get what I'm saying, that are overlooked. I want to come, I want to talk because I feel like the thing about conversation to me, it expands the mind. Like talking to you, I'm learning this whole entire time. You get what I'm saying? I'm thinking from things from a different aspect. I feel like conversations, like, because I always believe in the fact that once the mind is expanded, it can never retract.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So it only takes a conversation. Like I could come to, like, for example, I go to my high school, Jones High School, and I really tell the kids about the importance of uh, finding themselves. Tell the kids about the importance of understanding what they're up against. Telling them that they have the ability to do whatever. They were given the God given ability to do something big. They have purpose. You get what I'm saying? Those little things, those little seeds could take them on a wild journey. So that's really what I'm like. Really, what I want to I want to do in a major way and just not be. Even though I might be this big as far as influence, I'm still my voice, my presence is attainable. I want you to know that I'm a, you know what I'm saying? It ain't nothing but God that's got me here. And I want to stay as close to that as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? Like, even Virgil always talked about, he was like, I was just like y'all, like, you know, I was a normal kid, you know, African parent, you know, I went to school for engineering because my dad wanted me to, but heavy focus outside, like outside of class, I was just like I was putting my all into my books. I was putting my all into my other interests, and those interests, you know,
Took you
brought me
away.
to where, you know what I'm saying. So it's like understanding the importance of education, but also understanding the importance of self education. So just really more mind work than anything. Just really like just exposing the kids to as much as possible as I possibly can. You get what I'm saying? Like I went to my little brother uh last week and just listening to him and his friends just talk about their issues, their struggles and the things that like, you know, just crying out for like guidance. And I'm just like, dang, like nobody really like ain't a real odd period of their lives. And it's like nobody I remember the things I'm thinking, wanting more out of life, realizing that okay, unless you're in school for STEM, finance or STEM or finance, really like
What you doing?
what you doing. You get what I'm saying? But nobody tells you that for real.
Nobody tells you that.
And
Nobody tells you that.
even me going to school for engineering, although knowing what I really want to do, but not having anybody or any proof that I can attack this route and still be very successful is another thing I kind of want to tackle. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like understanding like, and this is why I feel like financial literacy is a very big thing I want. That's why I love earning leadership so much. Cause like I want to find a way to uh bring that alongside the creativity to the younger individuals. Because if you, and this is what I want to get into when I call it the Ghetto Creative Centers, because that's one thing I have, like, that's like in the next 10 years, I have to have at least one. And the Ghetto Creative Centers are essentially just hubs for kids to come in and learn. You know, there's a heavy influence on sports in our culture.
Extremely.
And I was talking to one of the my little brother's friends. He was talking about like, now he can't play football. Like he don't know what to do. Like that was his identity. And I'm just looking at him like, dang, bro, like you so talented outside of that. Like Jimmy's watching how you interact with people, like how you do what you do, even illegally. Like you're a very intelligent young man, but the fact that you was holding so tight to this, I don't care for that personally. Sports are cool. I believe in health. I think that should be a emphasis in this generation. Health is important, but I feel like understanding that you really have inside of you what you need to provide for your family and future generations. There just needs to be some structure alongside of it. Like I don't believe in being a struggling creative. I don't. I think that like that was a norm for forever, and I feel like I want to be a part of that change. Like yeah, you might be 12 years old and you might can draw, and in my ghetto, come to my ghetto creative center. We're gonna foster that creativity. But we also gonna teach you how to structure yourself. You're gonna be able coming out of high school. You're not gonna necessarily need to go to college because you're gonna know how to use your creativity as a business and be able to provide for yourself because you're gonna have the financial literacy. You're gonna know what credit is. You're gonna know what these things are to be able to fend for yourself and still be able to do the meaningful work that you feel like you were put on this earth to do. So that's what my ghetto creative centers will do. We'll teach financial literacy to the kids starting around middle school, and we'll foster whatever whatever they want to get into,
Mm.
and then hopefully be able to give them a stipend and be able to hold their hands for the first 2 years out of college to be able to like set them they're out of high school to set themselves up on a positive trajectory to create more not just entrepreneurs but just I guess more entrepreneurs but more
Direction.
the more direction. You get what I'm saying? Not people just aimlessly doing stuff like, okay, you got you 20 years old, you got this art business going on, but you making money and you got investments and you're you know what I'm saying, by the time you're 30, 40, like it's real money. You got a fan like you get what I'm saying? Like just that type of stuff versus just a boys and girls club where kids can go and play basketball and play, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
come here and we're gonna foster we're gonna teach you creativity, we're gonna teach you know what I'm saying, we're gonna foster all these things and we're gonna push out well-rounded individuals. So that's what I want to put. I want to have those like boys and girls clubs all around the country.
Okay. I mean, the ideas are great. Um, and I agree with you. We do have too much of an emphasis on sports and entertainment.
Yes.
That is the detriment of us. Because I mean, at the end of the day, there's only so many people that are going to be able to get on the basketball team and really make the millions of dollars that everybody's chasing. Uh, there's a lot of people that can get on the football team, but there's a very small few that are going to make the $1 million that everybody is chasing.
And the windows are short.
And the windows are short, right? The average career in the NFL, I think, is 4 years. So, there's definitely a focus, and we if we're going to school, that is so true. We need to either be in STEM, or finance, or somewhere in that area, because those are the places where people are making money today.
Enough money to sustain yourself,
enough money
to invest,
yes,
and live a decent
life. That's what the money is. The problem that we have, though, when it comes to those things, is unfortunately we have a fear when it comes to being successful at science and math, and a lot of that stems from our lack of ability to read and do math.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at the numbers in terms of high school students, middle school students, the number of high school and middle school students who are reading at grade level, who are doing math at grade level, it's staggeringly low.
Right.
And so when you have those challenges, it makes it more difficult for you to be able to get into a STEM program and be successful, because you're going to need math, and you're going to need to know how to read those books.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can't do math and you can't read, those opportunities are pretty much shut from the beginning, because you're avoiding them in high school, or you're trying to skate through them in high school. So by the time, assuming you're brave enough to go to college, you don't have the skills necessary to be successful at it. And that's the problem with why a lot of students are shying away from those STEM and math. But that's what we need to be. And the other problem too in our culture is, who do we give the highest platforms to? And that's another problem that we have.
Yeah.
Because we give the platform to the entertainer, to the superstar sports guy or girl, whoever the case may be, and we allow them to be the spokesman for the culture, if you will, rather than listening to the finance professor. Like to me, a guy like a Boyce Watkins, right? He has a platform, but his platform is not nearly as big as LeBron James. But if you listen to him, what is he talking about? Financial literacy, understanding how to take your family, and invest your family so that your kids are better, right? These are the messages that we really need.
Mm-hmm.
But these people don't have the platform because they don't have the job that we find sexy.
Yeah,
exactly. They don't have the job that we find sexy, and so we don't listen to these people. We find, again, I mean, he's not by any stretch of the imagination hurting. He does his thing, but he doesn't have a LeBron James audience. And a guy who's talking about financial literacy should have a LeBron James audience.
Should. No, 100%.
Because there's no one who's going to argue that we don't need that. But that's not what we platform. We platform, again, we have a problem. If you're talking about social justice, if you're talking about systemic racism, you're going to get more of a platform to speak than if you're talking about those fundamental ideas.
Yeah, because I feel like
require the help of white people.
I feel like those things give us an excuse. Those things take us off the hook. And again, like you said, they just give us an excuse to blame someone else. Financial literacy makes you take it in your hands and learn. Like the biggest thing I've been on lately, like last year, 2 years, is learning as much as I can about finance, because that is the key to all of this. You get what I'm saying? Like when you think about the disparity in the knowledge, so I remember cutting a lot of FSU students, and when I was in college, like that was a big majority of my clientele. So I would go to the frat houses and cut them, and I would talk to them boys, and I would listen to their conversation at 17 and 18. It was just like, I'm just now getting on this. They're coming into college with 5 and 6 figure investment portfolios. They're white boys coming into college like with 6 figures in their account, whether it's a joint account with their parents. Regardless, this type of money is being managed at 17 to 18 years old, and it's just like, we are so far behind. but we don't care about it. They care about the stuff. I'm 24 at the time, like caring about. They putting me on different things, so it's like it just goes to show what you were saying. Like it's just I don't understand why our culture hasn't really like.
Well, I mean,
because they found a way to tap into both because they're just as interested in the culture,
right?
but they're
They definitely are.
they also
They understand. Their parents have taught them there's another life, right? And so they allow you to dip, but they also need you to know that it's over here.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, a problem is historically we didn't have access to the information, right? So we're really, because of the internet, we're really getting access to the information now. And so we're seeing a big shift. I mean, just in the last 5 years, there's been a big shift in terms of how much we focus on financial literacy, but we're in the infant phases of it.
Yeah.
And so it's going to take us 20 years. I don't even want to call it catching up. It's going to take us 20 years to change the mindsets of the people. Because I notice now, you know, I didn't have this mindset at 25, you know, but now, you know, I tell my 25-year-old, you know, you need to find a house. You got your job, you know what I'm saying? And you know, is it going to be the job that you want forever? It isn't, but that's fine. You're still making a steady income. So I'm not telling you to buy your own house, but I'm telling you to go buy a house that's an investment property. You know, and broadening the mindset. With all that, you know, I get it. Houses in Florida cost $500,000. That's fine. You can buy in Louisiana. You can buy in Georgia. You can buy in North Carolina, right? You don't have to buy here, you know, but you need to buy something because that's the vehicle that's going to take you to that financial place that you're ultimately looking for. But you're chasing from it. You're chasing it over here, not realizing you can chase it here, but at the same time, you can still be making money here.
Yeah.
And we're just slowly learning those tools. And then, and again, my 25-year-old didn't listen to me, and she's not ready. But it's learning those tools, putting it in the mindset so that, you know, maybe my 25-year-old doesn't get it, but maybe my 13-year-old will.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's that change that's slowly happening.
And that exposure early on too. Like the exposure to your 13-year-old, like him learning now and not being afraid, because I think a lot of it is just fear. A lot of it is just fear. Most of it is just fear, because even when I'm very risk averse. So I like anytime, like again when I remember when Forex and stuff came around, like everybody was so nervous. I feel like that was a great spark. I personally look at it as a great spark for our culture to really introduce ourselves to financial literacy yes, financial literacy in general. But most people were so scared. But I'm just like, we spend our time and our money on all these different things, like you said, these different vehicles, thinking it's going to get us here versus paying attention to the real vehicles, investments in real estate. Like those are the number one vehicles. That goes back to like what you talked about with parenting. Like we copy what we see. You get what I'm saying? But our parents have been typically fearful of the things they say about money early on, the way they talk about money. Oh, we can't afford it. Little things of that nature you hear growing up. So you think like, nah, I can't. Don't trust this. Don't, you know what I'm saying? Versus like, no, we trying this. We going to do this. We'll do this. And then explaining like, they're going to take time. It's going to take work. You're going to fail at certain things. Like all those different little like tweaks to how we talk about things, but we show the youth, I think, is important as well.
Yeah, we got to change our mindset too, just about failure in general.
Mm-hmm.
We look at failure and then we stop and we go, oh my gosh, I failed. I can't do this again because I might fail again. Mm-hmm. As opposed to looking at failure as the next opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, I failed. Okay, I learned. Mm-hmm. All right, next time I won't do that. Yeah. Now here's another opportunity to go be successful. Let me go chase it. And I know I won't make these mistakes. Maybe you'll make another one.
Facts.
But it's the mindset of it doesn't stop me. It's that propel me to going forward. Mm-hmm. Because as many times as I fail puts me closer to the next time I succeed. So it's that mindset. And you know, even with the brand, you know, I love the ideas of the philosophy of the brand. One of the things that I see, which is going to continue to be a challenge, and I love the fact that you are willing to embrace that challenge is the conversation for people to understand the purpose of the brand.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right. From my perspective, and certainly my generation, I think the younger kids, what I think it is, um, they don't see race in the same way as my generation did. And so, and because in some sense of the word, they see themselves as all going through the same thing,
Yes,
and
with social media.
not necessarily recognizing the differences that they have. And there's a good, in all honesty, there's a good thing about that. I don't necessarily look at it as a danger. I think it, depending on your situations and where you are, there could be some misguided steps that happen because of that. But I think the vision of what they're doing is not wrong. And one of the things that I would not want to change is to give them a mindset that there are roadblocks, right? Especially for young Black children. I think it's a failure of older people to warn them about the racism in this world. And I only say that because they might experience racism, but they're never going to experience it at the level that existed
Facts.
50 years ago.
That's a fact.
And at the level that they are experiencing it, a lot of times it goes over their head. So I don't even know if it's necessary to pre-expose them to something that they may not even see.
Facts.
And and that's the challenge that I'm working through myself. Is just making sure that I don't hinder you before you even had the opportunity to see for yourself.
Nah, that's a fact. And speaking to that, and then I'm gonna go into kind of like how I'm even attacking my brand from that perspective. I think that's important. I think that's very, very important because like these kids really don't see it because the younger kids really don't. Again, like I feel like our culture is so big now and so celebrated that their peers, for the most part, want to be like us, like the, you know what I'm saying. They want to be a part of that culture so bad. It's like you don't, like I said, it's not in their face on their level. It's like I said, and when it's they're faced with it, like you said, it's usually over their head because it's usually coming from a higher place, and it's like I said, it's usually not super overt. But then for how I run my brand, like I don't want it to be an empowerment experiment. I don't want it. I don't look at my brand as like a Black empowerment experiment at all because I'm the Black empowerment as a Black man doing what I'm doing. Everything else is just about unity. It's about everybody achieving this mindset. Yes, I'm going to influence, and yes, I'm going to do things for people of color because that's just naturally where my heart is. But as far as like what the brand will represent, I want it to represent no color, no race, no anything. Because again, like what you were saying, there's a freshness, there's a very freshness going on, and it's like if I can push my brand from demographic to psychographic because of the access of information, I feel like it can push that freshness in the right way. If that makes sense. So it's like, okay, I can because if we look at who supports our culture financially, it's not us. So it's like if I can get those kids to really like invite them into the culture, but not alienate them. So invite them in to understand like this is what's going on, but this is the beauty of what's going on. You know what I'm saying. Look at this as and you can be a part of this because we need you we need everybody in order to advance as a society and for us to advance as a people. So again, providing more art and more when I say art, I mean like fashion, film, music, X, Y, and Z, because that's all of the mediums I'm gonna play with the Ghetto Creative Collective. You know, putting more of that out there and actually like again, like taking my time to make sure it's meaningful. I feel like that will teach, educate, and also empower a generation as a whole to just be better. And I think naturally that will get away from Like, we'll get away from like the injustices of racial injustice and all. I think those things will be attacked just inadvertently, just because like the generation coming up will understand because they'll have the history and they'll and love and embrace the culture, but they also feel a part.
Mm.
And when you feel a part of something, you naturally care, if that makes sense. So it's like I love when people of not of my race wear my stuff. I love it because it's like I want you to embrace it. I want you to embrace it. I want you to feel it. I want you to wear it on you. So when you're faced with the real situation that you will be faced with and make a decision, you can choose to go the ignorant route, or you can choose. You know what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? Because I feel like I wasn't taught to hate nobody. Our culture, we weren't taught to hate. We were taught to love. We were taught to love. You get what I'm saying? And it's like just pushing love and abundance and authenticity in the kids' heads and purpose only would breed a spur of that. It can only go. It can only have a horizontal effect.
Gotcha,
If that
gotcha.
makes sense.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah.
We're gonna start to wrap it up. There's one thing that you haven't said that I know about the brand that I find
Interesting.
interesting is the fact that you design every piece uniquely, right?
For the most part, yeah.
So talk about that a little bit.
It's part of embracing the imperfection in the process. You get what I'm saying? Like too often, again, it goes back to the whole perception thing, like the whole like, oh, we gotta be perfect, or I gotta make something seem like it's not what it is. Like, nah, I'm learning as I go. This is raw art. This is art. It's not clothing. It's art. It's like me putting my heart and soul into everything. Like I think of things, I do it, I learn, I add, I grow, I talk about what I'm doing. You get what I'm saying? Like, because I know I'm very cognizant of where I'm going, but I like the idea of sharing. I like the idea of it being. I like the idea of it. I think that makes it different too. I mean, obviously, you get what I'm saying. Like, it provides a uniqueness. I feel like we're in the Renaissance, a modern day Renaissance, and I feel like sometimes people think that, like, even in the podcast space, people will say it's oversaturated. I don't believe in oversaturation. I believe I honestly believe that oversaturation provides a unique opportunity to really stand out,
Right.
to really like hone in who you are and really like, you know what I'm saying. So that's kind of like it's like a play on a few different things. It's like I want to show the rawness of what I'm doing. I kind of want to just show that I'm just learning and figuring things out. This is where I'm at, and I'm embracing where I'm at. But I'm also kind of like also kind of trying to mark trying to put my own unique mark and spin on what it is I got going on as well.
Gotcha, man. That's gotcha, man. What you're doing, obviously sounds great. And what I love about it is that you have a vision. You can see where this is going and where this will be in 5 years and 10 years. And I think that focus on making sure you're hitting the goals you need to reach to get to the 5, and then eventually to get to the 10. I think that focus is going to help you get there. And just being consistent. I think one of the challenges of why most people fail is that they aren't consistent. They don't take the time to be where they said they're going to be, to produce what they said they were going to produce, and then to show up with whatever they're supposed to have on time and ready to go. And so your focus on making sure you're achieving all of those goals. So I don't know how long it's going to take you to get there, but I have no doubt that you're going to get there because you have that focus. So I say keep it up, man. I think what you're doing
Before
is
we wrap
great.
up, can I ask you 2 questions?
Sure, go
If you
ahead.
don't mind? Okay, so I have 2 questions. So question number one, I seen you build something, and I'm talking about your food business.
Okay.
From pretty much nothing to something. So my question to you is, how did you persevere through I'm sure you had a vision. I'm sure you seen where you wanted to go. I'm sure a lot of the times the vision was way far ahead of the reality. How did you again stay consistent, stay focused, push yourself through even when it didn't make sense all the times financially? And then my second question is, after building that, in even what you're doing now, what gave you the confidence to, like you said you had something to say. What gave you that confidence to be able to jump out boldly and be like, because I'm just being honest. Usually, I don't want you to think I'm trying to call you old or anything because I'm not. But I feel like there's a lot of wisdom sitting next to me, so it's like usually when people get to a certain age, they don't really step out on things. They usually like what gave you the confidence to say I got something to say. Let me say it and let me what I'm saying, like I'm not done.
Gotcha. Well, the first question, with the business, it's perseverance and realizing that I haven't achieved the goal that I'm looking for. And so because I haven't achieved that goal, I'm going to chase the goal until I achieve the goal. And that's what keeps me going. And so even when it's not it's not exactly where I want to be, um, knowing that if I keep going, I can get it. Because I can see just from the experience when new people get introduced to what we do and the comments that we get, and it's like, wow, the fact that a chef, right? You think of a chef, they've been doing this, they went to school for this. And the fact that, my cousin will take something to a chef at a major restaurant and the chef will be like, man, that was pretty good. And it's like, and this is not something that I didn't go to school for this. I learned this off of the streets, relatively speaking, a father, a cousin, they used to do their thing and then they did their thing off of the street is what they did. And then I learned from them. And it's like, I saw what they did and like, how can we now take what they did and really turn this thing into a brand that we can take across the country. And so that singular focus of knowing that's where I'm going because I know what it could be. I know what people are telling me. Now, how do I make the steps to get it to the household across the California? And for me, I really have a global thing because my bigger goal is I got to get to Africa. But but yeah, that focus. I know where I'm going. I know where I want to go, and so I'm gonna keep pushing until I can't get there. But I don't believe that'll ever happen. I'm going to get there. So that's the driving force there. As far as starting the podcast, this has been a battle for me for a couple years now. And my initial battle was um, I don't talk like most Black people. And what I mean by that is I don't have a focus about a party. I don't think what Democrats do is great. I actually don't even think what Republicans do is great. But what I give them credit for is they are more interested in getting out of my way to allow me to do what I want to do. And I can use that to my advantage. Right? So if it's creating laws that are going to make me pay less because I have business, well then that's more that I have to go do this over here. Yeah. Right? So I don't necessarily have to agree with everything they think, but if you're going to give me something back in my business that I can now go take and improve my community, which is what we're all talking about anyway, then give me the Republican. Let me go take advantage of these laws that he just put into place and take some of this money and go put it back into my community. To me, that's gonna be more beneficial to my community than any new government program that you create. Because most government programs, they don't improve nothing, they maintain it. Yeah. So because I have that difference in thinking, I don't hear that conversation a lot. And so I had two issues that I was battling with. The first issue was I know that there's a lot of people that disagree with me. I had to laugh. I did a post, and for the first time in my life, I was called a sellout and a coon. And I got a kick out of it, to be honest with you. That was like, really funny. Because I woke up and then I looked in the next morning and I looked at my notifications and I had like 80 of them. And I was like, 80 notifications? Went to the comments and they was like, oh my gosh. I was like, wow, okay, this is exciting. But and I understand. I don't think like most black people do, if you will, right? I don't say it the way. My goal is the same. My goal is to uplift the black community. That's my goal. So no matter how I say it, no matter what I said, that's still my goal. And so it's not knowing that voice isn't there, so you're gonna get the pushback. And then recognizing we're in this culture today that if you're not saying what they want you to say, then they want to try and find a way to get rid of you.
Demonize you, yeah.
Right? And make you evil. And so those two things were holding me back. But, as you know, faith plays a role in both of our lives. And so just listening year after year, month after month, I just kept hearing boldness, 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 boldness. And finally one day I was just like, you know what, forget it. I feel something calling me to be bold about how I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's go. Let's start the podcast. Let's start recording, and let's drop these episodes.
No.
And whatever happens because there's a boldness that needs to be said, and it's you don't have to like it, but it's okay that I don't think like you. Matter of fact, I think we need more people who don't think like you, so that we can. There's nothing more powerful than a conversation, and a conversation doesn't necessarily have to change your opinion, but a conversation, as long as if it can just expose you or expand your mind about a concept that you didn't necessarily think of that way, then the conversation was successful regardless of
whether you agree
if you agreed or not, or if you changed or not. And that's the lane that I try and ride in, is bringing a conversation that may or may not be had. If you go deep enough on the internet, these conversations are happening, but I think at least in the circles that I ride in from time to time, I don't necessarily see, and I want to be one of those voices that goes, "Hey, we can go left too, and get back to and get back to the same place. Yeah. We don't necessarily always have to go right." And so that's the lane that I'm occupying, if you will.
Nah, that's so dope. That's so dope. And I don't know if you was familiar with Seth Godin, but he always talks about like doing meaningful work and understanding like I kept saying putting yourself on the hook, like standing for something, whether people care about it or not, putting your perspective out there because like you said, it's needed, and like it's ultimately gonna carve out a lane for you, and you're gonna ultimately be able to do like I said, meaningful things that we need, because you're not feeding into people's need to box things into a certain way because out of comfort.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Right. So
Right.
I definitely applaud you. You inspire me with that alone, because again, what I'm doing is like what I would consider you ghetto. I would consider you operating in the ghetto belief and mindset, because you're standing for something. You're standing for something. You're not putting yourself in the box of a typical black man's perspective. You're not operating in demographic, you're operating in psychographic, a belief system, a mindset. You get what I'm saying? Like you get what I'm saying? You're taking a stance on something and really choosing to be about what you say you're about, not just doing it to do it. So I really do appreciate you, and I do applaud you on that. I was just curious, and I'm definitely going to tap into your space, because I agree with you 100%. Like again, like I believe there's a lot of wisdom in older men and in your generation. It's hard for us to accept it at times. But the older I'm getting, the more I understand the bridge that needs to be, made in order, because the kids are like failing because of it. Even my generation, you're failing because of it. So it's like I definitely want to continue to bridge that gap, and I appreciate you having me on. Cause
no problem, man. No problem. One of the reasons why I created the platform, one of my podcast hero, if you will, is Joe Rogan, and one of the things that you see in Joe Rogan is in the same week he'll talk to an MMA fighter, a professor at whatever university, a former FBI director, and a comedian. Yeah. And that's the 1 week you got like all these different people. And so one of the things that I really want to grow into is having conversations with different people. Again, it's not about us agreeing all the time, but about us having a conversation about where you are, where I am, where we differ, why we differ. And, just to have that conversation so that people realize that just because we don't necessarily think alike doesn't mean we can't talk.
No,
You
fact.
know, and one of that's the challenge of today's world is if we don't agree, we typically don't talk.
We don't talk.
And so we stay in these boxes on each side of the world, and nobody's ever talking. Everybody's just talking at each other, but nobody's talking to each other, which is one of the reasons why, honestly, I don't think we get anything done in government today, is because we have too many people talking at each other. Okay. In addition to the fact that they all too old to be there, but that's another conversation. We need some new blood up there. But yeah, that's all a part of that problem. That's one of the solutions I want to tackle is just creating conversation with people about whatever. Because there's so much that we can talk about in this world that we aren't, and why not? Why not?
Sure, because like I want to get back on my podcast too, but because I paused it because I wanted to have a direction, and I feel like I didn't really have a direction. So this is definitely a good formative conversation.
Yeah, and with the podcast thing, why not? I think it would help people to understand the brand more. Because the more you're talking about it, the more you put it in their face, the more they get to see that it's bigger than a word.
Does it make sense to you?
It makes sense to me where
Do you
you're
have
going.
more of an understanding?
I definitely have a better understanding of what you're trying to do. Again, would I have attacked it that way? I don't know. I would have attacked it that way, but but I definitely understand your vision, and I even understand why you chose the word. I get why you chose the word. I just one of the challenges I have. I mean, there was one point in time, right, where everybody wanted to change the N word, and we wanted to change the meaning of the N word, and that never really happened, right? To me, we pretty much diluted the word is what we really did, because when we spread it across, they talk about rappers when they talk about going to Japan, and the first thing they go is "What up, my N word," and it's like, dude, that ain't cool, man. I don't care how you think it. That ain't cool that you got off the plane and they can barely pronounce your name, bro, but they know to say "What up, my N word." So we went off the rails with that. And so, I'm not saying that's going to happen with Ghetto.
No, for sure.
But it just reminds you of those situations. I think, one of the things, again, that you want to do is to have these conversations where you would get to talk about it with different people so that people can really see that vision of, oh, these people not just wearing a shirt to say ghetto because they're ghetto.
Yeah, and that's one thing I've it's like it's really hard, and that's probably where I found my biggest challenge, really, because like it's easy. Cause again, like I said, that's why I think of my brand in 3 levels. I understand. I'm not shying away from people like that see the word and see it in the environment. Cool, do that. But hopefully, that can draw you in to what I'm saying. That's why I want to do a lot of. I think that's why I really got to get my. I feel like God is like I really got to get my podcast back going, so I can have conversations with different people and really like because like it's not for everybody. It's not everybody's not gonna get it, and that's another thing. The dude I was telling you about, he's like not focusing on everybody. He's focusing on who you can focus on and those people, because the message will get across. Like if you're like again, like I can speak all day, but if somebody you value opinion, they speak, they what I'm saying, they live it, and you get what I'm saying, it is more transferable. And I think because this word has so many different origins, then is negative connotation towards just black individuals. I feel like I can make some kind of headway. I don't think I'm about to be able to change the word completely. I'm not like that ignorant. It's more of an experiment. I look at it like an experiment for me, more to hone my voice and to hone again what my purpose is. Because I think with the word or not, I still have the same mindset, same purpose. It's something I still want to. This is just the outward expression of it.
Right.
So
and then too, I think once you get into your community service work that you want to do, that's going to expand it even further, and then also open people's minds up to, oh, this is not just a T-shirt, and so it's again it's tiered, like you said, it'll be a balance and it'll be tiered, and again, I don't think anything is ever meant for everybody. But if you can reach the audience that you're supposed to reach, and I mean, there's 7, 8 billion people in the world, so you can find an audience.
Yeah.
You just have to keep plugging and attacking where that audience is, and you'll find your tribe. And once you find your tribe, you'll find your success.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I say keep pushing, man.
Yeah.
Again, I love the fact that there's a vision. And so even if I don't see it myself, I don't need to see it. The only person that needs to see the vision is you.
And that's hard. That was hard for me.
Yeah, the only person that needs to see the vision is you.
That was really hard for me because, like, again, I value y'all's opinion. I might not ever admit it to like my parents or anybody, but like, I value the opinion because I feel like a lot of the little bit of wisdom I do have and the perspective I do have comes from that. To be able to look above my situation and above my peers and be like, okay, yo, we tripping. You get what I'm saying? Like, we need to like get back because I like this. People like to say I'm old, so I listen to 70s music. I love old movies. I love to like the past, and I love the camaraderie people had in the past. And it's just like, how do we get back there? How do we?
It takes individuals like yourself who are willing to do the work to get y'all there. That's what it takes. And so that's why I say you got to just keep going. Because the one thing that I'll say for myself and people in my generation, it's not that we're telling you you can't do something. It's that we're trying to tell you there are roadblocks or there are challenges, let's say that. There are challenges that you're going to have if you take this route versus this route. And so the guidance is not about avoiding, the guidance is more about trying to show you this path is going to be easier if you go this way than if you go this way. And so you can go this way, but recognize there are going to be challenges this way that are going to make it more challenging for you to get to where you're going. And it might even take even longer to get you where you're going if you go that route. So just go this way so it'll be easier. That's really what we're saying. Because as a parent, what you're trying to do is you're trying to show your kid the pathways that are going to easily take them to the places that you want them to be. And when I say you, I'm talking about the parent, right? Because I want you to be, if I was, if your parents making $100,000, then they're hoping you're going to make $200,000, right? So they're saying, this is the easier route to get you to that money that is better than the money that I want, that I got, because that's what I want for you. Whereas a lot of people in your generation are going, yeah, but I don't like that route. I like this route. This route is the route that seems more akin to my personality, to my spirit, to my passion. And that's the route that I want to go. And then so as parents we're going, yeah, but you know how hard it is to build a brand, boy. You know how hard it is to change people's mind. And so it's not that we're saying don't do it. It's that we're saying, man, you don't realize how hard it's about to be, and I just don't want your life to be so hard, right? Because I had a hard life, so that you won't have a hard life. So I don't want to put you in positions that are going to make you have the same hard life that I had. And that's really what the spirit is. It's not that we don't think or we don't know that there's people who blaze a trail and win and succeed. We know that happens.
Just don't want you to.
But we didn't. But I didn't do all of this, so that you'd have to go chase that route, right? I did all of this so that I could show you just do this.
I have a response to that when you post that, because I just have a question to you.
Go ahead.
So okay, my thing to that, I agree, and that's just now becoming like apparent in me, and that's why I'm so more accepting of the wisdom now. But there's just a piece of me that's always been this way. Like I'm talking about since young, that always felt like, okay, you were put here to do something. Because my perspective has always been pretty. Like I've been very observant of like what was going on, not necessarily just around me, but just in general. I've seen the differences. So I've always felt like I related to the people who trailblaze, and it's like, but I'm also like, again, I understand because it's like that hard route is not fun. So it's like learning to listen and try to, take the advice to stand on the shoulders of, stand on the shoulders of your parents, because that's what it's about.
Right.
But it's also about, like, okay, so how do you attack purpose that way? That's my biggest thing. Like, how do I? Okay, so I understand, because it's like that was my biggest thing with what I got going on. Because it's like I knew what was gonna come with it, and I fought it because I'm like, but I'm like, again, that vision was just so like here, and it's like, okay, it's here, but it's like, and it's like 1,000 roadblocks. But then it's like this person, like when my dad has guided me, okay, like if you're gonna do this, go this way, and I'm just like, that don't, you know what I'm saying? But like again, the more and more I'm really sitting and thinking, it's like, okay, I see what you're saying. And I see why what you're saying makes sense. And I'm gonna chart it, but I gotta know how to chart it, but kind of like still be able to,
Different.
you get what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, because for example, my father's thing with the whole thing is like, okay, make sure you're very cognizant about who's in it, the foundations of it, and who you get to stamp it. Not necessarily promote it, but yeah, promote it, but stamp it more to say. And I'm like, at first I fought that heavy because I'm just like, they're not my target audience. They're not my target audience. I don't care about them, and they not put money in my pockets. And it's a more frustrating situation to get it that way. But I'm like, the more I'm really sitting with it, I'm like, okay, I need them. Even though this is who I'm trying to influence, I need them because at the end of the day, you need people who can open the doors, who have the keys. You need them. It is what it is. So it's like that's why I'm like, okay, I need to focus on again my community work, because that is, like you said, that's gonna make what I'm doing more digestible and more understandable, and give it more meaning to people who don't necessarily, or might find, or might just have their preconceived notions about
Right.
what's going on. So it's
Right.
like I'm understanding it more and more. But it's like for the longest, I just didn't.
Yeah. I mean, cause like I said, with the community work you want to do, it gives you access to funding that you can't get
Got it.
just by selling the product. You know what I mean? And then when you get that access to funding, it's going to bring the attention to what you're doing to be able to even expand it even beyond what you're going. Because listening to you, it even sounds like what you want to do in a community service realm is way more important than what you want to do with the brand.
Way more.
And so why not, your play, if you will. Your play is probably focusing on what you want to do in the community, and that will open the doors to fund your brand. Because as I see what you're doing in the community, as the outsider looking in, now I'm going, oh, so that's why he tried to sell all these shirts. And so let me go buy some of these shirts so he can go do more in the community.
And that just clicked like the other day. That didn't click earlier because I was thinking, like I said, it was a more of an insecure place. Like, okay, they're not gonna get it. I have to reach a certain amount of X, Y, and Z for them to understand it, for me to present it to them, to be able to allow me to do X, Y, and Z. But now I'm understanding, like you said, like that play is the focal point. That's the play that gets the meaningful work done. That's the play that gets what I'm doing past the word, past the initial roadblocks. But then I'm naturally who, you know what I'm saying, the audience I want, and the audience, so I'm naturally that. So they're naturally going to gravitate towards it because I understand that side.
Yeah.
So I do that with ease. This is the side I have to learn. This is the side I have to kind of like focus on and kind of like make sure I'm really putting my mind and my efforts and stuff towards, because again, like you said, this is going to give you the exposure, because who I naturally am is going to attract that side. I'm like I said, these are the things that I'm talking about, like literally like last week. Just sitting and really just like thinking and like praying and just like writing out what I'm trying to do. I'm like, okay, yeah, I gotta focus on my podcast is important, and my community work is the most important thing. Like the designs, the fashion, that comes easy. I put that on every day. I know how to put it on. I know how to create. I'm creative. That's easy. This is where my heart, like when that start, I feel like that, like you said, that is the key. That's gonna ooze everywhere. You get what I'm saying?
Because once people see what you're doing and why you name the brand the way you have, once they see that and then see the actions that you're putting behind it, even the people that you didn't think were going to support are going to support because of what you're doing in the community. Because there's a lot of work, there's a lot of finance, if you will, for things to be done in the community. And so, if you can do that, you'll be surprised because of what you do in the community, who will put on the brand to expose what you're doing in the community.
Yeah, and
that's going to take you further than whatever you thought you could do with selling the brand.
Facts. That's a fact. And it's crazy. My dad was he was saying that, but the way he says things is just never like. It's never like I said, the wisdom was coming, and he been preaching, and I'm just like, bro, like, you don't get me. I'm like, you don't get me, but it's just like, nah, you get it. You just get it in a different, like,
you get it different.
You get it in a different level. Like, you get it.
It's about trying to show you that there's a better way to go about this. And here's the thing, I would say this too. Let's say you honestly didn't agree with that, right? I'm not saying you can't do it this way. I'm just saying if you do it this way, it might take you 5 years to do what you could have did in 2.
Facts. No. Facts.
And sometimes, in all honesty, I can imagine when you think about the trailblazers of our society today, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, right? Bill Gates at one point in time, right? I'm sure these people had some of these same conversations with their peers, maybe even their parents, about the fact that they weren't going it about the traditional route. And again, you can go those ways, but just be prepared that it might take longer, and you might hit more roadblocks.
And you can get lost.
You can get lost than going this route. And so I agree. If that's what he told you, he's 100% right about that.
No, like I said, he's 100% I did not receive it at first.
He's because again, there's so much money into building community efforts than there is anywhere else. Because people love to give money to a cause that's meaningful. And so when you create those causes from a pure place and you can articulate the purpose of the cause, there's a lot of people that are willing to help with causes. And again, once they see the cause, once they see the vision, those same people who you thought never would put on a ghetto shirt will wear a ghetto shirt
and talk about
and talk about why they chose to wear this ghetto shirt.
Because the conversation started regardless.
Yeah. Right. And then they'll talk about it in places that you didn't even know they were going to be talking about.
And that I could never get access to. And like I said, I understand that now. And that's why I'm glad that this is why I think I am maturing, because I'm starting to grab like a hold to things that I usually would just like completely reject and run against. But I'm sitting with him now. I had to sit with that, what he's saying, but I had to sit with it, like have more conversations about it, and really be like, I ain't gonna lie. But again, a part of that is me always like just being like extremely crazily hungry for just growing my mind and not being stuck in my ways, because again, at the end of the day, like my thought process got can end me up in a lot of different places. So I'm like, okay, and I'm not wasting time no more. I'm against that now.
I was just I shot another podcast last night, and one of the things that we talked about single men is time. The one thing, and I talked about Kevin Samuels because rest in peace. He one of the things that he did when he talked to younger men, especially men who are single, is there's no reason why you shouldn't have, let's say if you're not making the money that you want to make, there's no reason why you shouldn't have 2 jobs. Because you got the time that you have now, you're not going to get back. Because the moment you put a permanent woman in your life, she's going to take away from that time. The moment you make it official, and by official I mean marriage, and then y'all start having kids, right? The time that you have is going to get reduced again. And so take advantage of the time you have now, because you'll never have that much time again. And so having this time and taking advantage of the time you have now is the most important thing you can do because it's going to set you up for everything that you're trying to do in the future. So figuring out how to get that nonprofit off the ground, under the ghetto,
Yeah, that's my next
ghetto
goal.
collective creative. Wait, how to say it again?
Ghetto Creatives.
Ghetto Creatives.
The name is Ghetto Creatives. I just
Ghetto
added
Creatives
collective so
Brand.
you can understand what I was
So
saying.
yeah, so Ghetto Creative Brand. Understanding how to open that 501c3, so that you can get access to the funding that you need to do the community work that you want to do. This is your time to get time. And if you don't have a means currently to pay for it, you have no reason why to go get a side hustle, on top of what you're doing already, so that you can go pay for it and get it taken care of and then get to the work, because you have nothing but time. And it's so many of us waste our time during these years.
Youth is wasted on the young.
And then when we get to be my age, recognize the time that we wasted, and now we can't get it back. So I spend a lot of time now doing things like this because I didn't spend the time then.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I had did the time then, I wouldn't necessarily be this place. I might be 10 times greater than what I am today. And so that's the one thing I encourage young men your age. Like, y'all got the time.
That's a real
I know you have, a lady and everything, but y'all still got the time.
Nah.
So yeah, use it, man. Go chase it. You ain't sleeping 5 or 6 hours a day. If you're sleeping that. So, go use some other time to do something that's gonna get you closer to the places that you want to be. And keep chasing that until you start moving it in the direction that you want to go, man. That's the dream, man. I mean, at the end of the day, that's all your dad's asking for.
All he's saying. Everything he's saying is all he's saying. You just saying it in a more digestible way, but but what he's saying be facts. That's why I'm like, the more and more like I said, the older and older I'm getting, I'm like, I hate stuff that be coming out his mouth, but it be facts. Like when you really sit in it, like, and take all it be facts. I'm like, that's all he talking about. Like, he's just talking about you need to redeem your time. Like goes back to the Bible verse, redeem the time for the days are evil. You get what I'm saying? Like you got to like take, like he's like you said, time is everything. Again, another quote I'm trying to like drill through my head. Time is wasted on the young, and I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be in that system.
Yeah, I mean, go chase it, man. You had a vision, just put it in action. Mm-hmm. Just go put it in action, and like I said, you're gonna be amazed at the doors that will open because you're putting it into action. I mean, just the fact that because I forget how old you are.
27.
27. So just the fact that you're 27, right? You're gonna introduce this plan when you put it together to people, and just based off the fact that you're 27, they're gonna be blown away that at 27 you have that vision, and just because you have that vision, they're gonna want to open. They're gonna want to write you the check. What can I do to help? Mm-hmm. Whether it's a check, whether it's you can use my building, whether you know what I mean. It's the opportunities. Just because you have a vision, the age that you're at, and if you can articulate it, right? So you got to write it out. You got to get that plan. You got to make it official. You're gonna be amazed at what you can do, and then where your brand can go because of what you're doing.
So I have so many. I'm gonna end it right here with my question. So okay, speaking with that, so I understand that now. Well, now my next thing is like my presentation. That's my next challenge with that. What do you feel about that? I have braids, I have tattoos. I'm gonna try to keep them out of. I'm gonna try to at least be able to put a suit on and you can't tell. But like balancing that side of me, which is very influential in the space that I'm in, but also knowing how to, again, you have to, something I have to just come to realize, it is what it is, the world we live in order to be in those spaces, and two, you have to present yourself a certain.
So what I would say is you have to know your audience. So know who you're going to speak to this day and recognize the presentation that is going to be more appropriate for them. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that means you have to. That I'm not saying you had to cut your hair for it, right? But
I can't dye my hair.
you might not want green hair.
It's funny that you said that because I was definitely about to dye my hair.
You might not want green hair, you know what I mean? And then even if it's in braids, right? You want to make sure it's, it looks the fresh as it can be. And it doesn't necessarily, and it might not even necessarily require, a three-piece suit, but it might require more than a t-shirt. You know what I mean? And so recognize your audience, because not every audience is looking for the same thing, and not every audience is going to be taken back by what you look like. At the end of the day, it's what you say when you get there. Because you can come in with the suit, and if you fumble on how you say it and how you articulate it, it don't matter what you look like anyway. So, make sure, number one, the presentation is great. And then from a physical appearance, just know your audience. We don't, there's very few places where you have to wear a three-piece suit every day. So it's not that you have to have a three-piece suit. It's just that you have to be appropriate for the occasion.
Yeah.
And for that, all that means is know who you're talking to. There's a presentation you want when you're talking to the head of GE, and there's a presentation you want when you're talking to, Cole Anthony from the Orlando Magic.
Do you think there's a certain level of success you can reach as a black man where it don't matter?
Where what doesn't matter? What you look like?
Mm-hmm.
There is a success that you can reach where it doesn't matter, but the amount of money you have to get there takes a while.
And you probably wouldn't care at that point. Okay.
And you don't care at that point. So I look at, like, I use Jay-Z as an example. Mm-hmm. For me, I look at how he walks around now, and I'm going, dude, really? They say you're worth $1 billion. This is how you present yourself? But at the same time, when you got $1 billion, very few people really care about what you think of their appearance.
Right. And for a minute, he did do what most rappers was not doing at one point.
So yeah,
he 360 his image in his youth.
Yeah,
and wearing suits and logo, like, you know what I'm saying. Like
he tried.
He tried. He was pretty. I feel like he did it okay. He did it okay.
He tried.
I mean, he's never been the most fashion forward person. In my opinion,
he hasn't. So. He's never been the guy that you was like, I want to be just like him. Mm-hmm. No, he's never been that guy. Yeah. But it, you do get to that point. But I think by the time you get to that point, you got so much money that you no longer care. You don't care anyway, because the opportunities that you want, you're already funding, or you're just looking to partner with people to fund. And, if they turn you down, you're like, well, whatever, I can find somebody else. So I don't really care. Yeah. But at this stage, to me, because people aren't so focused on hair and, clothing to a lesser extent, you can get away with a lot of stuff. But it just needs to look good.
It has to be done the right way.
It has to be done the right way. The hair has to be tight, even if it's in braids, even if it's dreads. It's got to be. It can't be dirty dreads. It can't. It's got to be that fresh, the fresh twist. So that it looks put together and it doesn't look like you just rolled out of the bed. So but the biggest thing, man, plan. Just put the pen together, man, and I If that's, I agree. If that's what he told you, I agree 100%. You can open those doors.
No, that's that. I mean, he didn't necessarily say that, but he said it. What I said, he pretty much said it. I knew he was alluding to what he was saying. He was just, his biggest thing was like, be very, very careful of your foundation, and like what it looks like. You get what I'm saying? Because, like, example, like him wearing it, people gonna like, and it did. Like, I ain't gonna lie, I'm thankful for him wearing it. When he wore it, it kind of brought a little bit more social proof to other individuals. But he's like, all right, now with that social proof, like with that exposure, they need to be able to, if they want to dig deeper, they need to be able to understand. And I'm like, you're right. Like, I get that. Like, I haven't been focusing on that part, that aspect.
You've been more interested in the creative part.
Because, like, again, that's the part that, again, it's easier. It's passion. It's easier. It's, what I'm saying, like, to the audience, I want respect and stuff for it. They get it. They rock with it. It's natural. But I'm like, I know and I'm cognizant of where I'm trying to go. So it's like I have to kind of like I can't feed all the way into that. That's too now focused versus
Long
future
term.
focused. So it's like it's just the balance of both. You understand? And I understand that. So yeah, it's every day. It's an everyday thing for me. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's an everyday thing. But I, again, I'm appreciative for the people that I have in my life. To be able to be like, don't think so much about now. Because when you think about now, in 5 years, when it comes quickly, you're gonna be mad you didn't.
Yeah,
So,
definitely, definitely. Like with what you're going, you need to see it. You need to write it out 5 years so you can see. And then, like I said, now is the time to start doing our project.
facts.
Now is the time, and then get out there. Get out there. I mean, there's so many opportunities to get out there. So just get out there, man.
No, for sure.
All right.
This is great. This is a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Hey, man, shout out. How do they find you, man?
You can find me on at my socials at the Ghetto Creatives on IG, and also the Ghetto Brand. Braizy Make for my personal. That's it.
That's it. All right, man. Man, I appreciate Braizy for stopping by, man. I hope y'all enjoyed this conversation. I hope we said something that made you think. I hope you understand more so why this brother walks around with ghetto on his shirt. It is not talking about the ghetto. I hope you get that now. Man, we appreciate you for joining us. Please like and subscribe to the channel. We are on TikTok. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Everything is YouTube, of course. Everything is a brother with questions, man. I appreciate y'all for joining us. We're out, man. Until next time.
It's a brother.